Well, it's a lovely day, especially because I'm doing another import at last. The NISSAN Largo. This one's been in the country for quite a few years, and the owner has a great love for this thing. And I can see why. Alright, so a bit of background. This is the Largo, and this is the Serena. Notice any similarities? Yeah, they're pretty much the same thing. Just slightly different front bumper and slightly different lights. The Largo was supposed to be the special version that was for Japanese users only. But it's funny, they went back on that and changed that in the new shape so that all the new models are called the Serena, and I think the Largo is completely gone now. It's all a bit strange. Now how about this? Not satisfied with one MPV minivan thing, in comes the Elgrand. Why are NISSAN making products that compete with stuff they already make? Good question, smart ass me. Good question. I guess it's the Volkswagen paradox. Eventually you wind up competing with yourself. So why would NISSAN make two very similar MPV minivans? I guess we need to go back to our good old friends at Volkswagen to help us figure that out. This is the Volkswagen Charan, their 7-seater. This is the Touran, also a 7-seater. What's going on here? Well, it's because the Touran is smaller and cheaper than the Charan is. And yes, it might seem a bit counterintuitive to compete against oneself, but not everyone can afford the more expensive one. So I guess it's nice to give them two options. I'm pretty sure the Elgrand and Serena situation are very similar. Anyway, we went way off topic. One of the things that you will notice with the Largo compared to the Serena in most countries is the body kits, the wheels, and the lowered suspension. It's fairly common to see a Largo tricked out like this. Not so much the Serena. I quite like the body kit on this, the Moretti style headlights, and the interesting lines on the front bonnet. I actually think it gives it a nice look to it. However, there's something weird going on underneath that interesting bonnet. That's strange, there's a spare tire in there. Where's the engine, you might ask? Well, with the Largo, they decided to do it the way they did it with the Toyota Previa. They mounted it under the seats, so it's mid-engined. This one's a 2-litre 4-cylinder petrol, but you also got a decent diesel option. That of course gives it an immense advantage over the Elgrand, especially in terms of fuel economy. When out on the road it drives and looks very similar to the Elgrand. So there obviously must be a win for Elgrand owners if they're more expensive and considered more prestigious. Well, the difference is in the interior. There are, however, some ways in which the Largo still beats the Elgrand, and I think this is one of them. I really like this glass roof idea. I think it's much better than the Elgrand E50's triple sunroof. However, this suffers from the same problem the Elgrand E50 does, in that it only has a sliding door on one side. Luggage capacity is just as impressive as the Elgrand, maybe slightly more so. The seats aren't quite as versatile as the Elgrand, but a lot of other things are very similar. Like the fact that it's only got one sliding door. Other little random things in the interior are different. But overall, the major difference is these seats and this sunroof. So let's go over the seats. An Elgrand's middle row is either split in two and has two captain's chairs, or a 2 and a 3. This thing's not like that. It's all one bench. It also doesn't swivel. But on the plus side, it does have cup holders built in the back, so you can lay it flat. Another thing that is improved in this is the center seat. Okay, it's got the same lap belt system, but actually the center seat is way more comfortable in this than it is in the Elgrand. And for the back row, it's also the same. The middle row is where the comfort's at. You do get door pockets. This one's obviously filled by something useful, but if it wasn't, you could put other things there. You get an ashtray. Not like people use those anymore, but you do get a set of cup holders, which actually look pretty durable. The center section of what should be the door is also very well presented and has a lot of storage space. Plus you've got large
windows. Climbing in isn't the easiest thing in the world, considering the seat is all one piece and it doesn't really fold quite the way I thought it would. But apart from that, when you're actually back here, again, it feels very Elgrand-ish. It's very MPV, and it is comfortable seating. This half leather seat is actually really good. Now, other than this, I can see there's some cup holders on the back of this seat, and I'm curious how that functions. They do fall flat, but you have to pull a different lever. And then you get these nice two cup holders in here on the back of the seat, and you get the same on this one. Though I can't see them being used that much. I guess it's better to have them than not have them. The view going forward of the sunroofs is actually pretty awesome from back here. Just the one at the front being different tends to make it look a bit weird. But overall, I quite like it in here. Storage space for the back row is limited to 2 cup holders on one side and an ashtray on the other. But the seat in front of us does get rather large, expansive door pockets, so there is space to be had in here. Each sunroof has independent closing covers, which I also appreciate greatly. Listen, I've only got one thing to say. This interior light isn't perfect, but it's way better than what you put in the Elgrand. I don't get it now. I mean, they've done it halfway decent before, but in the Elgrand they still screwed it up. I'm scratching my head here. Our front door cards are a little bit plain. Could have done with some more colour infusion, I think. But you do have the hard wearing plastics, but you also have the soft cloth. Door handles are fine, but very old school. The switches are exactly the same as the Elgrand and a lot of other Nissans. Air controls are also very old school. Most of the switch gear in here is. Including, look at this. It's the rear heater. Nice. Look at these dials. For me, this was love at first sight. Look how old school it is. How well laid out it is. It's really simple, straightforward, and I really like it. Vents are nearly identical to the way it's done in the Elgrand. The climate control unit is very 80s, but the stereo is very modern. I don't mind its position or anything like that. It's fine. No column shift this time. No, we get a gear stick on a large center console. There's a couple of things I don't approve of. The 12-volt socket placement. The fact that the cup holders need a cover. Don't know why. But the gear stick itself is really good. The switch back here will be very familiar to anyone who's looked at my E50 video. This is exactly the same switch. Coin storage or ashtray if you're so inclined. And a storage area, which is not as big as it looked from the outside, but you can still fit a fair bit in there. This glove box is quite large, but it's full. I guess it's lived in. Well, it's just like the Elgrand in terms of getting in and out. It's really easy. That's no bad thing. Let's take a look. The key's very much like the Elgrand too. Well, the E50 anyway. Almost exactly the same. What does she start like? Let's have a see. Okay, I'm going to put this up there with the Elgrand, the Previa, and various other Japanese MPVs that are just so good that they put the European market to shame. And yeah, this thing is not exactly new. It's a 1997. I mean, how many 1997 cars are still on the road in the UK? Not many. And okay, this thing had a head start because it was obviously in Japan for a while and thus didn't wind up with the same level of rust issues. But even then, this thing's obviously been in the country for quite a few years and it's still going. And it's still being maintained as best as possible. The owner obviously cares for this thing. Obviously. And I'm starting to understand why. The longer I drive this, the more I like it. And yeah, okay, you can call me biased. I tend to like older vehicles that are a bit rough around the edges, but I mean, honestly, what's not to love?
Thank you very much to Sonia for letting us have a look at your pride and joy. She uses this every day for work as a childminder. And yeah, like I say, it's obvious she cares for this thing. And I don't blame her either. I can tell when I sit in it that some really good memories were made here. And, you know, some of that's what a car is about. It's not just a need to be thing, certainly for people like me. It's a culture, it's a way of life, it's a member of the family. It's a work of art. And with that, this video is done, so please get in touch with me if you've got anything nice and interesting that you want me to check out. I don't care about condition or anything like that. What I care about is whether or not you have a story, a connection with a car. Those are the ones I love doing the most. But anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, like and subscribe. If you didn't, you might like one of our other videos. Check some of them out. And of course, till next time, look after yourselves.